I'm going to try to make this video as fast as possible because I am quickly losing light. It's only 5:49 and it's getting dark. That's really sad. I wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about my background so that you guys know me a little bit better and understand where I'm coming from, what my background is. I know everybody loves to ask me what my ethnicity is. Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna kind of shoot the shit with y'all today and take a break from the desirability thing. I was racialized as Black in my very first contact with an institution that was my elementary school. I internalized racism at this institution. And to give you a little bit of context about where I grew up in Jersey. I grew up in a bubble of a white liberal town. But if you know anything about New Jersey, you know New Jersey has a crazy history of racism. I mean, if you've read Asada Shakur's autobiography, you would know. So in this white liberal bubble that I grew up in, that really touted itself as diverse, there was a white side of town and there's a Black side of town. And what my town did was it decided to have magnet schools. So it doesn't matter what part of town you live in. This was an attempt to desegregate the schools in the 70s. They made it a magnet school system. So your child can go to whatever school in the district, in the town's district that you want. So the demographics of the school changed, but institutional racism is a little bit harder to get rid of. My elementary school was in the whitest part of town, the furthest away from the Black side of town that you can get. The school I went to borders the next town over, which is regular racist New Jersey. Most of the teachers there were white Italian women. But anyway, the idea that I grew up with in this liberal bubble was that racism was in the past, that we were all the same. We didn't see color. We were all treated the same. So this was the narrative that I had internalized. And so it made me unable to clock racism. It made me unable to clock microaggressions. My mom is Black. She is an immigrant from England. Her family, her parents came with Windrush from Jamaica to England. And England was different. The racism was not the same in England as it was here. So I just want to point that out, that there was a disconnect because my mom is an immigrant. Okay, dad is white. Dad is Jewish, white American. Third generation. He's fourth generation American because it was my great grandparents who came from Romania, Austria, Belarus, Russia, came here. Okay, so that gives you a little background of me being a little not quite educated on the fact that racism is still a thing. The most racist thing that happened to me at this school was that I was placed not in a remedial class, but I was actually taken out of my regular studies with the regular class population. An outside teacher who was not my teacher would come into the class, read off a list of names. All of them happened to be Black and brown. I was one of those names. I was called out. This was the dumb group. Not only had I internalized being dumb because I was in the dumb group, I had fallen behind in the regular class studies because we were being taken out of class. And so I didn't do as well on tests because I wasn't there to learn the lessons. I have no idea what the hell that was about. I think they might have gotten those names from standardized testing scores. We weren't told anything. And because I had internalized being dumb already, I never told my parents that this was happening. But I remember how ashamed I felt for my name to be called in that group. I remember not wanting to get up. I remember wanting to stay in my seat. The way the other students would look at us, I was called dumb because I was in the dumb group. All of the boys I liked were in the smart group, and I just felt not smart enough, not pretty enough, not anything enough. That was my elementary school career. And then in middle school, of course, those who did well in elementary school, they get put into the smart groups in middle school. The people in middle school get put in the smart groups, get put into the smart groups in high school. And so there are kids that were always going to be ahead, and there are kids who were always going to be behind. I think what I'm trying to highlight here is that I had really internalized not being intelligent. I really, really believed that. And because of that, I ended up thinking that what made me good was being pretty. And that felt like the attainable thing to be. That if I couldn't be smart, if I couldn't be the top of my class, if I couldn't get into a good college, then at least I can make myself desirable. At least I can get the right clothes. At least I can wear makeup and have my hair a certain way. At least I can be sexy. At least I can. Being desirable then became the thing that I wanted to be. And in middle school, I really leaned into that, and in high school, I really leaned into that as well. I didn't think I had any other value or any other worth. And you know, as a kid, you don't listen to what your parents say. And because my big Black family, which is protection, which is culture, which is community, they were all in England, right? So it was really just my Black mom holding it down. And she did enough. She did enough. But at the same time, one Black parent in a sea of whiteness, of white upper middle classness, was not enough for me to really know how to love myself. It was also in high school that I ended up being in CSJ, which stood for Center for Social Justice. There were these learning communities within our high school that we could choose. We could choose CG. Was it CGI or it was civics and government? So you could be a civics and government, though all the white kids went there, and then you could be in social justice. And I decided to be in social justice. I heard both communities out. They both went to all of the freshmen and talked about what they did and what they spoke about. And I was immediately like, oh, CSJ. Like I want to talk about this stuff. I want to learn about this stuff. So I ended up being in that small learning community. And I actually ended up leaving that small learning community because there was a white male teacher who we got into an argument one day about the N-word. His argument was that the N-word should not be said by anyone. My argument was that if Black people want to use that word, they have a right to. And that was it. That was really it. And after that, he just did not treat me the same. And so I left. And that was what my 16-year-old sense told me to do, was just to leave the thing. Like, I didn't want to be around that teacher who didn't like me. He was like such a likable teacher for everyone else, and like was so buddy with everyone else, but then he just didn't like me. And I was just like, F this. And I just left the community. At that time, I still, my priorities were not on schoolwork or my education. It was still like, I was also depressed in middle school. There's a lot of stuff that I skipped over. But I'm just talking about the history of me being in institutions. Being in predominantly white institutions your whole life forces you to do this very awkward dance. You practice this awkward white dance that you learn to be really good at, and it kind of fucks you up. It's kind of how you learn how to survive. It's why I talk the way I talk, and my dialect goes in and out. It depends on what I'm talking about, how I'm feeling when I speak. That changes, but I definitely have the majority of the time a white sounding, passing white northeastern dialect. And And it's not really my rhythm. Whiteness is not my personal rhythm. Elementary school, middle school, high school, college, all of the institutions that I've had my experience with have been predominantly white. And so I've adopted a lot of whiteness, undoing the internalized conditioning of the institutions that we grew up in is work. It's work. It's deep, intentional, spiritual work. I've been in community with Black people my whole life, but I haven't been in predominantly Black institutions. Anyway, what does that have to do with desirability? Low key everything. Low key everything. But I just wanted to give you guys some background on me and who I am. And I'm sure I'm missing out a whole bunch of stuff, but I have to put out a video every single day. So this is the one I have for you today. And I will see you in the next video. I will see you tomorrow, I guess. All right. Bye.